I wanna know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide.
So, just to introduce kind of why we're even at this point in our life, this is something over the last 10 years we spend every Wednesday night going out to eat primarily. That is a requirement. And then going to a movie, if there's a movie that's good, that meets his strict religious criteria. And
I do say that it's been a challenge having Kevin pick movies.
yeah, well,
I finally glad he got one right tonight.
yeah. So tonight, what was the movie we went to watch?
The Case for Christ, based on the story of Lee Strobel.
Yep, Lee Strobel. I've heard a lot of my friends that recommend reading that book, and I am pleased to say here's one more book I don't have to read because the movie was pretty good.
I actually read the book,
Yeah.
The Case for Christ. Well,
That
I'd heard
fiasco.
about Lee Strobel and his book, The Case for Christ, and how he went about trying to disprove Christianity. And so I said, okay, I want to order this book. I think it would be interesting. So I ordered the book and I read it, and I found out that the book was not by Lee Strobel, but it was by a different author with the same title in the book. So I have still yet to read Lee Strobel's The Case for Christ, but as you say, now I've seen the movie.
Yeah. So he was an atheist who was a reporter for the Chicago Tribune, and he actually, what I didn't know was that he actually was the one that wrote the story about the Ford Pintos blowing up. So as a kid, I was always looking for the Ford Pinto because I knew about that story and was always hoping we'd come across a Pinto on fire, but never did.
I can see you chasing down Pintos in your youth.
As a kid, I'd hear a fire engine, and I'd ask my dad, let's go chase it, just in case there was a Pinto on fire. Never was a Pinto. But
now he just traded that for Pinto beans.
Yeah, Pinto beans, I've learned, can catch things on fire. The other thing, he was a guy that just lived by the facts, and so he was an atheist, and it was interesting to kind of see how he wanted to disprove that Christ existed. And so, what was one fact that you thought was interesting that he came across?
Well, in a later part of the movie, he went to see a doctor to determine what a medical doctor would say about whether Jesus really died or not. And the theory that he proposed to the doctor was what was called the swoon theory. And the swoon theory is where certain people believe that Jesus actually did not die on the cross, but actually just feigned death. He was just in such a weakened state that they buried him and he was still alive, and instead of dying, he recovered and left the tomb.
Yeah.
But the doctor showed Lee Strobel in the movie a copy of the American Medical Association. I imagine it was peer-reviewed, where it showed that they disagreed with people who say that he didn't die, and actually because of what he had went through, Christ that is, and all the suffering he had to go through before the cross, during the cross, that he actually died.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. The fact they had 500 people say they saw him afterwards.
At the same time.
At the same time, that said, that thinking of people were brainwashed. But they had a psychologist say that it's really unusual for 500 people to have the same dream and agree on it. So that would be even more of a miracle of happening than Christ raising from the dead. So that's kind of an interesting fact as well.
True.
But
another example that they used in the movie was the Apostle Paul. He was sent by the Jewish Religious Council to actually persecute Christians. And he went from persecuting Christians and watching Christians being killed to actually becoming a believer and follower of Christ. Yeah. And he actually did that to the point of his own death.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the interesting things that we're left with it was thinking that you have to have faith to believe. and Lee makes a comment that you have to have probably more faith to not believe. So I thought it was a pretty cool way to wrap it up, because you got to believe something, and either you believe or you don't, and you've got to have some faith. Well, I would have to give it a thumbs up versus our last movie, Boss Baby. Probably anything would have been better, but this truly was a good movie.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up for the two fat guys. So this video goes out to our fellow friend Grant Nelson, who has chose a different set of friends. Friends I'm sure he has not known for 20 years like me and James, but he was not with us tonight. He may join us in later episodes whenever his wife lets him out of the house. So,
Come on, Grant.
yeah,
We haven't heard from him this week, have we?
I think it's been about a month. But I do have to say, I saw that he posted on his blog yesterday. So he is alive, at least in the last 24 hours. So.
All right.
All right. Let's see if James turned the microphone on this time and see if the video works. So for this week, we're out of here.